Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Minecraft in a Redstone world. This is my Redstone test world, not my usual place to talk about these Redstone videos, but the build that we're looking at today is a little bit larger than the platforms I've been using, so it felt appropriate to come here instead. There's some fun stuff here. I designed the greenhouse. I had made sure that the bee farms would fit in it. I designed my tree. There's a couple other things. Some hot nonsense if you want to try and take a guess at what any of that is. But none of that is what we're here to talk about today. What we're here to talk about today is this lovely little system, and to talk about that, we need to understand monostable circuits. There are two kinds of monostable circuits that we are going to talk about today. We have a rising edge monostable circuit and a falling edge monostable circuit. Both of these will produce a single output during the course of their activation, but at different times. For what we are looking at today, we're going to use a rising edge monostable circuit, but we're going to take a look at and understand both real quick before we get into that. So what is the difference? Well, with our rising edge monostable circuit, when I flip the lever, we get a signal output. And when the system turns off, we don't. Activate when we turn on, and not when the system shuts down. With our falling edge monostable circuit, we get no output when the system turns on, but we do get an output when it turns off. Now, these are both very useful, and they will show up in a lot of Redstone systems, not specifically these designs. These are just the two that I happen to grab, but there are many, many other ways you can build a monostable circuit. This falling edge design works in both Java and Bedrock. The rising edge here works in Java, but it does not work in Bedrock, so we'll discuss a different design that we use when we hop over to Bedrock after we're done looking at this here in Java. Speaking of looking at this here in Java, let's take a look. So, one of the things that we've talked about a little bit before is crafters. They're new and we love them. They allow us to automate some stuff. And we've talked about sort of the bare minimum basics on crafters up to this point. You can take a second crafter and lead it into the comparator output of the crafter you're using, and make a system that will only activate when this is completely full. Other than that, you can run a simple clock. I like to slow down the tick speed just so that the system doesn't overproduce. And now, in our case, let's grab some bamboo. And we can craft up sticks. Hooray! And this will just sit and spit out sticks until it's done. Hypothetically, you can run a bamboo farm into one of those and get an output chest for sticks, like this. You can also run an iron farm into an input for iron ingots, like this. And these are the ingredients we're going to use to look at a multi-item or a multi-ingredient crafting system here. This is a little bit more complicated, but I've tried to make this a little bit of a blown-up design. It's not super compact because I want us to be able to look at every circuit that we're activating in this specific design. Consider it more of a educational piece than a Redstone marvel. But if we look at this cyan circuit, this should look incredibly familiar. We have a crafter completely filled in. We have a crafter missing the spots we need for a iron sword. And this will create the pulse to activate the crafter when the crafter is full. So, we're starting off with something we already know, we've built before, we've looked at before. But now we need to look into some things that we haven't, starting with our yellow circuit. We have a barrel full of iron swords, and we have another crafter here. This one is the one controlling our crafter here. This one right here is controlling the output of our barrel. So if I drop one of these, this turns off and activates our system. And there's the monostable circuit we looked at a minute ago. So our yellow system is detecting how many of these we have and deciding whether or not the system should be active. So what happens when the system is active? Well, we are currently in an inactive state, powering this redstone torch, which turns the system off. We have observers observing this redstone dust, which lead into a monostable circuit, or technically 2 tiled monostable circuits, which take outputs through these repeaters to create timing going up these torch towers, which are detected by our observers on our lime line and on our dark green line. The lime line activates, as you can see, 1, 2 times, and runs down here, activating a dropper for our iron. The green line activates once and runs down this line to activate our dropper full of sticks. So when we activate the system, let's toss a couple of those real quick, we should see, take just a moment here, 1, 2, and 1. Now, you probably saw there that this dark green line actually activated a little bit earlier than the second tick here. A single tick of delay difference, but very close together. So, the reason we can get away with that is because we are adding 2 ticks of delay to our sticks through these 2 hoppers, because each hopper you travel through has an additional tick of delay. So even though this is firing before our second piece of iron, by the time our second piece of iron fires, our first stick is here. So it will remain behind the iron until it runs down into the system here. So, what else is our yellow circuit doing? It's obviously activating our item call, but what else does it do? Well, when this line is active, we're taking a signal through this repeater and running it into this red circuit, our single block red circuit. What does our red circuit do? It is the lock circuit for our hopper. So you'll see, when we toss a couple of these out, that this activates, and it turns off this redstone torch, allowing items to pass through, which we may not even see them, to be honest, given how hoppers work. Hoppers are a little weird. But it works, and it's consistent, and we get items to pass through and craft. So, we have our system that activates when our crafter is full. We have our system that detects when our barrel is less than capacity and activates our item call system. And we have our hopper lock. But what about our pink circuit here? Our pink circuit, we're actually taking a 15 strength signal out of our repeater here, and we're running it into a decay clock, which we looked at last time. So we take a signal strength of 15 here. It goes 15, 14, 14, 14, 13, 13, and down and down and down it goes it slowly decays and sends a signal into, oddly enough, the same block as our barrel input. Now, why would we do this? So let's watch this thing actuate real quick. You can see when the system activates, our monostable circuit fires and is left in a off state. When our pink signal turns on there, you'll see it retract. There it goes. And then when it turns off after that decay clock is done, it will reactivate to make another system call. When this barrel is full or at our set capacity, this lock will take over and keep the system turned off even after the decay clock is done, which you should see in just a moment here. So that activates. So now even when that decay clock turns off, we still have the system turned off. This decay clock is sort of acting as our reset to run the system again. Retract and reactivate the monostable circuit until the system is at capacity. We have another line that activates when the system is out of capacity. Currently, this redstone torch is off. When it turns on, it activates our purple line, which runs over to the next module, which is exactly the same as the first one. And our line here on the next module, we're activating the pink line. The pink line, which, if you remember, acts in the same way as our input here, deactivating the system. This means that if I take items out of this chest and activate our sword module, then come over here and take items out of this one and activate our barrel module, the barrel module will be held locked by this torch until the sword module is full again. Only when the sword module is full again can the pickaxe module actually start running. And you should see that change here in just a moment. We get another through activation through here, so 1, 2, 3. And then 2 ticks there, 1 there. The system continues running, and now we're getting our pickaxe system to activate. And that goes a lot faster. We should see 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And they're kind of staggered, but because we have the extra delay built in with these 2 hoppers, we can once again get away with that. Which is how we're getting pickaxes to fill back into the system. So, the major flaw that you've probably recognized with this now is that if I take picks out before swords, the system doesn't have a way to lock in reverse. Now, there are ways that we can fix that, but they're a little bit beyond the scope of what I wanted to talk to you about in this video. So, let's take a moment. Let's do a quick review of what each of these systems does. We have our cyan circuit, which acts as the activator for our crafter. Our yellow circuit acts as the inventory control circuit. It detects when the system is low and activates the system to call for crafting items. We have our red circuit, which is powered by our yellow circuit, which is our hopper lock control circuit that allows items to pass down into our crafter to be crafted. And when our crafter gets items into it, it activates our cyan circuit, which gives power to the decay clock on our pink circuit, which deactivates the monostable circuits, allowing them to fire again if more items are needed. We also have our purple circuit, which locks later modules down the line. You could run this same purple line down to a dozen modules in a row if you wanted to. So, The only things to really consider from here are, moving forward, how you would prevent a later module from being messed up by the activation of earlier modules, being able to take a pickaxe and then a sword instead of always having to grab a sword first. That's a consideration to keep in mind. Another consideration to keep in mind is how you could expand this to take in larger ingredient recipes rather than a 2-ingredient recipe like this. How could we make a 3-ingredient recipe? Well, you could do it the same way. You would just run another parallel control line back to another dropper and another chest buffer, and you could run the same signals upwards into this additional line. Hypothetically, you could raise these lines to where they run directly in parallel, or you could alter the way that you're running them up. But you can just add more lines for more items, and you could have 3, 4, 5 item recipes. So, that's something that you could absolutely upgrade and do on your own. The reason that I liked this for this episode is that every part of this build is something that we've looked at least to some level, in one of our prior Redstone videos. This is just a culmination of things that we've already talked about, broken down into color-coded circuits so that you can take a look from a distance and see what's happening and walk through the process. So, let's go ahead and hop over to our Bedrock world so we can see what minor alterations have to be made for this to work over there as well. Alright, guys. Welcome back to our Bedrock Redstone testing world, where we've talked about all of the same systems from before, our leaf stone, our scaffolding, our various farms. And over here, you can see we have the same falling edge monostable circuit that works exactly the same way. But we have this slightly quirky pumpkin-based rising edge monostable circuit, which, as you can see, activates on the on motion, but not the off motion. And this is the monostable circuit that I've used to replace the sticky piston version we used in Java. There's a couple caveats. So these cannot be stacked right next to each other, tiled directly alongside each other like the Java ones can, because we need this to be a redstone cross. If we put these next to each other, it would be a line running next or running parallel like this, and we wouldn't get activation through this pumpkin. But because we're not using the observer and piston version that we used over in Java, we're actually able to give more delay on this left-hand line. So, this is at 1 tick of delay, this is at 4. We run through the monostable circuits. We have 2 ticks of delay, 2 ticks of delay, 2 ticks of delay. We go into the exact same torch tower, into the same layout for our item lines. We have the same, exact same cyan circuit, the exact same pink circuit for our delay and our reset. We have the exact same red circuit. The only difference in this entire build is this monostable circuit. And as you can see, system works in exactly the same way. If I clear that out and then come over here and clear out this, we will only get activation on the sword circuit until it has completely refilled, and we'll get 2 ticks there, 1 there, and we get a more consistent delay here. Like I said, we could get away with the closer delays we had over in Java, but here we don't have to worry about could get away with. we have that extra delay already built in. And here in just a moment, we should see... Yep, there we go. And here. So as you see, 3 ticks there, 2 ticks there. They run back along our item lines. Our sword container is back to capacity. And our crafter for picks is still running. And the system will just keep going until this is fully restocked. So it's a super stable design. You just have to keep in mind that you have to take items left to right. And in a future video, we can absolutely revisit this. We can take some time. We can show how you can make it lock in both directions. We can use a logic latch array to set it to where only one cell can be active at a time, no matter how many cells you have, and strip out a bunch of the control circuitry we used here. But that's going to come after we take a deeper dive into some logic latches and into some binary functions, building things like adders. Because a lot of that logic, that computerization logic, is what we can use to make this system smarter. As long as you're careful, though, this system will just work, and you could have a setup like this for every iron tool, every iron armor piece, every item you can craft out of wood using bamboo, every redstone component if you set up a witch farm. And you could sincerely, pretty easily make a factory. Easily is a stretch. Take these concepts and just expand out, and you could build a factory that can produce most blocks in Minecraft. So, if I missed anything in my explanation, if I was unclear about anything, leave a comment and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. Thank you guys so much for all of the love and support that these videos have been getting. I incredibly appreciate it. It's honestly made my day week over week. Every time I put one of these videos out, it gets so much love, and I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys for watching. So, thanks so much for coming along on the adventure, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.